there, welcome to U.S. History with Lennox. I am Lennox, and today we are still in time period 4, covering the years of 1800 to 1848. Our topic today, topic 4.10, is right smack in the middle of that time period, and we're going to cover the Second Great Awakening. Our goal by the end of this video is to be able to explain the causes of this religious revival that swept our nation. So before we get started, let me give you a definition for the Second Great Awakening. It was essentially a series of revivals among Protestant Christians that emphasized righteous living, personal restraints, and a strong moral guidance that would lead a person in society to salvation. This movement spread like wildfire throughout our country, and one way it did that was through camp meetings. These camp meetings usually took place outside of town or in fields where preachers would come in and give emotional sermons, and they would preach day in and day out for weeks at a time. Now, what's interesting about this is the Second Great Awakening is occurring at the same time that the market revolution is taking off in our country. And what's interesting is in the market revolution, we learned that economic success and failure is in our own hands. The harder we're willing to work, the more effort we're willing to put into something, the more of a success we could be. Well, that's essentially what the Second Great Awakening was teaching us. It was teaching us that salvation was in our hands as well. And that if you reformed your life, if you practiced justice, if you controlled your sinful urges, that you would be on the path to eternal bliss. And you had that choice. You could make the decision to follow Jesus and live your life that way. Now, the Second Great Awakening occurred about 100 years after the First Great Awakening, and there were some differences between the two. If you think back to the First Great Awakening, when we had the teachings of people like Jonathan Edwards and George Whitefield, we have to remember that they taught the Calvinistic approach to salvation, that salvation was actually in the hand of God, and no amount of work could contribute or take away from redemption. Another cause of the Second Great Awakening is the rise of democratic and individualistic beliefs. During this time period, we're seeing a rise in a desire for more participation in our democratic processes, specifically among the lower class of people, those who didn't own property. And what was interesting is these camp meetings that occurred during the Second Great Awakening were egalitarian. Everybody was welcome. Men, women, black, freemen, slaves, everyone had the same opportunity for salvation. Another contributing factor to the Second Great Awakening was this Romanticism movement. I talked about that in my previous video. And that movement took us from a rational reality into an emotional reality. Charles Finney, one of the big names in the Second Great Awakening, had a different approach than what we saw in the First Great Awakening. During the First Great Awakening, preachers like Jonathan Edwards were very cerebral in their sermons. You almost had to study to understand what they were saying. But Charles Finney took a more basic approach. He used language that common people could understand, helping them on the path of salvation, understanding how simple it truly was. They didn't need to have a great education to understand that all they needed was Jesus. And this movement is going to light a fire in the United States. And what we're going to see is, while the movement itself was about salvation, it's going to expand beyond that to grow into being more about reforming our society as a whole. The Second Great Awakening is going to spur a massive reform movement in our society. It's also going to spur several offshoots of Christianity, like Mormonism. But that's for our next video. Hopefully we met the goal of understanding the causes of the Second Great Awakening. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments below. Other than that, I thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next one.